And today, they're going to crash. It's going to take people down. And now it's here. Office buildings will soon be homeless shelters. Oh, I took your advice. I bought a house. I'm going to make some money. I said, at the top of the frickin' market, don't listen to your stupid real estate agent who tells you that, oh, the price of real estate always goes up, because it doesn't. When I hear people coming up to me and say, oh, the price of real estate going up and they're jumping in to buy real estate right now, I don't say anything. And the reason is that people are just getting into the hype. All this credit, it's actually debt, credit and debt, pumping into this economy, trying to prevent this crash. And if inflation keeps going, I get richer. I am extremely happy. And I think Biden, I'm not Republican or Democrat, he intentionally wants inflation. That's why he shut down the XL pipeline. That's why he stopped drilling to get oil prices up. When oil prices go up, you know, all these truckers in Ottawa screaming, they can't get food to the table and all this, prices of food go up. Inflation keeps going up regardless of what's going on, just because the policies shutting down the XL pipeline, stopping drilling of oil, so the price of oil goes up. I watch all this, and meanwhile, these people are jumping out and buying real estate like there's no tomorrow, and I can't even talk to them. We're on a turning point. But please understand, ladies and gentlemen, inflation makes the rich extremely rich. The middle class will pay higher taxes, and the poor will get poor because they're the ones who can't afford that $25 Wagyu steak that my friends are selling. So that's why we're on the biggest critical turning points, and that's why I don't know how many years ago when I walked past Richard's book and Borders, and it says the dollar crisis. If you understand what's going on, the problem is the U.S. dollar. Because in 1944, it stopped being money. It just became the reserve currency of the world. And in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. We're being set up right now, one of the biggest changes in world history. And so, oh, I bought a property. What do you think? I can't even talk to him. Because this, to me, is 2007 all over again. And then the repo market collapsed. 2008, the market collapsed. And back in 2008, this guy named Bernanke, I believe it was, could print money. And this is where we are today. You've got to wake up, ladies and gentlemen, because otherwise you're just this stupid little hog just driving to slaughter. So America is we're at, not just America, we're one of the biggest turning points in world history. And like there was Rockefeller, one of those guys said is, when shoe shine boys are giving you stock tips, time to get out. And I was in Safeway the other night, and these people are coming up to me, I did what you said, I did what you said, I bought a rental property. And I came back home and I said to Kim, time to sell. It is so dangerous, but you can't talk somebody out of it because they drank the Kool-Aid. So that's why I'm really honored to have a dear friend, Richard Duncan, been friends for years. He helped Kim and I time the last turn back in 2008. We made fortunes because while everybody was selling, we were buying. And that time has come again. And so that's why please listen to what Richard Duncan has to say.
A few months ago, the Fed was still creating $120 billion every month. And then in November, they said they were going to start tapering that, reducing that by $15 billion a month. But the very next month in December, they said they're going to double that and reduce it by $30 billion a month. And that meant that it's going to come to a complete stop. The money printing is going to end totally early next month.
No more printing next month.
No more printing. And then the real blow came. They started letting it be known that they were planning to do the opposite. Instead of printing a lot of money through quantitative easing, they're going to start destroying a lot of money through quantitative tightening. Now, when they print money, that pushes asset prices up. When they destroy money, that tends to make asset prices fall. And when the stock market...
How do they destroy money?
Well, they destroy money because when they print money, they buy bonds with that money. And normally, when the bonds mature, they just roll them over and buy a similar kind of bond. But they destroy money by essentially selling those bonds. And when the Fed, what happens is the bonds mature and the Fed doesn't roll them over. Someone else has to buy the bond. So the Fed gets its money back. And when the Fed gets money back, that money just evaporates. The Fed doesn't need to keep any money because it can make all the money it wants anytime it wants to. So it's a bit complicated to explain in just a few sentences, but the bottom line is it's the opposite of quantitative easing. quantitative tightening destroys money, and that tends to make stock prices fall. And we're about to get a heavy dose of quantitative tightening coming into effect within the next couple of months.
And it's going to make it harder and harder for mom and pop to go buy that house they're going to flip.
And isn't that going to drive inflation through the roof?
Well, they think the opposite. When instead of printing money, that's the thing that normally causes inflation. It stimulates the economy, it creates growth. But when they destroy the money, that tends to make asset prices fall, like stocks and property. So people are less rich, so they spend less money. And if they spend less money, then prices tend to fall. So that's why they're doing this. They're worried now that the inflation rate has moved up to 7%, and they're taking steps to bring it back down. But what they may find is this could cause a significant stock market crash. And some of the high-flying stocks got hit a whole lot harder than that.
Look at Meta or Facebook, whatever those I call now, they tanked.
Destroying $230 billion of American wealth.
There goes your 401k, sweethearts. And that's why I spoke out against 401ks forever. And then all you guys who you're planning on renting your property, people won't be able to afford the rents. That's what it means.
Well, so total credit is equal to total debt, because one person's loan is another person's debt, right? So the two have to equal each other. So one way of thinking about this, the easiest way to think about it, is all the debt in the country. Government debt, household sector debt, corporate debt, financial sector debt, all the debt. It first went through $1 trillion in 1964 when I was 4 years old. Now it's $90 trillion. From 1 trillion to 90 trillion during my lifetime. And this credit explosion, which would not have been possible if we had remained on a gold system where dollars were backed by gold. But this explosion of credit has transformed the world.
Wait, Richard, hang on. You're speaking like an economist again. Credit is what the Fed and the Treasury allow people to get to the big banks like Wells Fargo and all that. And that credit then allows the banks to send out debt. So then corporations and individuals come in and they take credit and they turn it into debt, but it's the same thing. So by creating credit, debt could explode. Am I correct on that or incorrect?
No, I think you put that exactly right.
Yeah, credit's not a word people use. They use credit card, but they think about debt, their household debt. So that's what I'm saying. We don't teach economists. We teach everyday mom and pop who is trying to speculate on their 401k or their house.
The reason I tend to use credit is because I say this system that we have now is not capitalism, it's creditism.
Yes.
Creditism sounds better than debtism. I tried that. Creditism works better. Yeah, Capitalism to creditism. Because credit growth drives economic growth now. We're dependent on it.
Yeah, what Richard is saying is the way America grew was because we produced products. Now we don't produce products, they create credit or debt. Am I correct on that one?
That's right. Instead of our economy being driven by investment and savings, as it used to be, it's now driven by credit creation and consumption, and more credit creation and consumption. And that's been great. The problem is it requires credit growth to survive. If credit contracts, we have a depression. And that has made us dependent now on government borrowing and government spending to keep us out of depression.
So if you're going to buy, I don't know how many people, I took your advice. I bought a house. I'm going to make some money. I said, at the top of the frickin' market? And what about all these guys in this 401ks? 401ks came into existence in 1974. It was called ERISA. And I've been speaking out against 401ks because I will get censored with this one. But 401ks are like a condom. It gives you a false sense of security while you're being screwed. Do you know what I mean? And if this market crashes, when they raise these interest rates, if they do, your 401k turns to 201k. Just as you get ready to retire, all you old guys like me, hear what I'm saying? If they raise interest rates because they're going to stop inflation, your 401k may be toast. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Or if you're a millennial and you got mom and dad who are living in La La Land with their 2 401ks, you might be in serious trouble. A very important subject. And the subject is real estate, basically. It's important simply because it's real estate. Parts of it are in serious trouble right now. But when things are bad, also there's good opportunities for things. How many places in the world have we gone to?
It's been all over the place.
Yeah, we travel the world. We're talking about real estate because, number one, real estate uses debt. And you may or may not know this, but the U.S. dollar is debt. In other words, money cannot exist unless somebody borrows it. And so all these guys, our friend Dave Ramsey always says, live debt free. I go, you got to be crazy. But I'm going to back Dave up. If you don't know how to handle debt, definitely live debt free. Right, Kenny?
Yes, that's right. I agree. If you don't know what money is and how to use it, then he's right on.
I met Dave at a restaurant up the street here, and he's a great guy. And his advice for most people is cut up your credit cards, get out of debt and all this. But Kenny, what's happening in the real estate market today as interest rates go up and all this stuff? I just heard Richard Fisher, the Dallas Fed chairman, he said a unit, I could be wrong on the numbers, 3,500 units. One apartment complex went down. Well, that's a lot of property.
And Blackstone defaulted on debt in New York on a set of buildings. I call it, we're in the first inning.
And I'm afraid it's going to get worse.
You don't have to be afraid about that. It's happening already. It's definitely happening. The issue this year and next year is going to be what we call maturing debt that's maturing.
Another thing to understand is different types of real estate. Some of the worst properties are the darlings called office buildings. Everybody thought, I'm going to own an office building in Manhattan and all this. And today, they're going to crash. It's going to take people down.
I just read an article today, Robert, that the cities and counties are actually throwing money at developers to convert office buildings into apartments. They already know that those buildings, those office buildings, are going to be eyesores at some point.
I was a student of Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. We call him the friendly genius. John Denver called him the grandfather of the future because he's a futurist. And years ago in the 80s, I heard him say office buildings will someday be homes for homeless people. I went, what? That was sacrilegious for me back then. And now it's here.
That's quite a prediction, too. That was how long ago was that, 50 years?
50 years ago. I'm listening to this guy who says office buildings will soon be homeless shelters. And you look at the number of homeless is exploding. I don't want to be an owner of a homeless shelter, as you know. It's either going to be the worst of times for real estate or the best of times, right? The reason living debt-free makes no sense simply because the fiat currency called the US dollar, the yen, the peso, the euro, they're debt. They're instruments of debt, like a bond is an instrument of debt. And that's why Dave Ramsey said living debt-free, it kind of goes contraindicative. How can that be if it's debt? But the good thing about debt is it's debt. And on top of that, the more debt you use, the less tax you pay.
It's not obvious to a lot of people. Just do what the Fed's doing.
Yeah, it's the strangest markets. We're in serious, world economy is in serious trouble, but it's also a great opportunity time. We use debt all the time, 100% debt. And I tell you, it is a game of debt.
We're borrowing at less than inflation. So that's when we talk about money, that's how you do it.
And a good thing, too, is the amateurs are now floating to the surface, as they say. I feel terrible for people because people come up to me and they go, I took your advice. I bought real estate. I'm going, holy moly. Real estate's not like a stock. You don't just buy real estate like you buy Apple. The difference is if you buy Apple stock, and let's say it's $10 and it goes down to $6, you can get out of it really quickly. But with real estate, it's not that liquid, and that's why you've got to be smarter. And why I cringe when people say, I just jumped into real estate. I'm going, oh my God, that's like jumping off a moving train or something. So much is going on in real estate.
What happens is guys like you, or I would say anybody over 50,
has seen it.
They've seen the cycles. They've felt the pain if they made it. But a lot of people are pretty delusional about, and it has been for years, next year's going to be better than last year. It's just not the case.
No. What happened since 2008, they kept lowering interest rates, and the whole world economy went into a bubble.
Correct.
It was a real estate bubble, a bond bubble, and a stock bubble. And so everything got inflated, but as they started to lower interest rates in 2020, or raise interest rates in 2020, a lot of those bubbles are bursting. So it's good news and bad news. And all of us are old guys. The people I caution that you have a financial planner that's at 35, let's say. That financial planner has only known a boom market. Because as it dropped interest rates, the market kept going up. So I meet some of the young women and men, they go, yeah. All they know is a good market. But the biggest opportunities float when the bodies start floating. When the bodies start floating to the surface, you go, oh my God, I can't believe that came up. Oh my God, look at that. There were so many deals coming up when the fish start to float. And it goes to the saying, your profit is made when you buy, not when you sell.
So the cash flow versus capital gain strategy that you laid out in Bridgehead Port Ed, this is the time where you're going to start to realize that philosophy. That's been our philosophy all along. Everything I have cash flows, and that's just not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people bought big assets on a capital gain strategy, and guess what? That gain is not there.
So capital gain strategies, we call it flipping. When I first met Kenny 20-something years ago, everybody was into flipping. The show Flip This House and all this. So you buy a property for, let's say, $10,000. It goes up to $15,000. You flip it, you net $5,000, but you pay capital gains. And we don't do that. I'm chuckling because the world's full of real estate gurus. If you're a housewife or a husband and you bought 2 real estate properties, you're now Donald Trump as far as you're concerned.
Right.
But there's some of these charlatans on YouTube. I've got into arguments with some of them. This guy says the way you get rich, just go out and buy a 200-unit apartment house. And I said, you don't start with a 200-unit apartment house. That's suicide. But that's what he was selling. And I know the trick is called a bait and switch. So you go there, he shows you how you too can buy a 200-unit apartment house for like nothing down and all this other stuff, but you're on the hook for millions. And then you go roaring off and try to do it. His real gimmick is to sell you what he's selling.
Oh, you can't do it? I can do it for you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's frightening times, but it's also exciting times. Always remember your profit is made when you buy. And then one of the things I really get kind of sad about people, when real estate started going up, everybody started jumping in. And that's not when you jump in, not when it's going up. You want to ride that roller coaster down and then buy. Right?
When there's a line out the door of people trying to buy the asset, that means it's over.
As many of you know, the economy is on shaky grounds. Banks are failing all over the place. And the question is, what do you do about it? And I get really, really excited because your profits are made when you buy. And as prices of real estate crash, it's actually the best time to be a buyer. But as I say it again, I meet people who are amateurs at this business. They wait, the price on the 100,000 went up 200,000. Oh, we got buyers lined up for the property. And that's when people jump in. You should be getting out. The other thing too is that people say, well, I don't have money and all this. When the real estate market crashed, it's crashed several times.
Yep.
And I had no money. And I started trying to put a deal together when interest rates were 12%. And today's what percent are they today?
Yeah, it's more like 5 to 6.
And people come, I would have killed back then for a 5 to 6% interest rate. It's always a good time, but you have to know what you're doing with real estate. My rich dad always said, only lazy people use their own money.
I know. Gosh, that was such a great statement. It's true.
Yeah.
People don't realize, when you put your money with an insurance or a pension or even in a bank, it's a liability for those institutions, period. They owe you expense, in the form of interest. That's a problem for them. So they have to lend it to guys like us. And that's called OPM or other people's money.
And always remember this, the US dollar or the euro and all these other currencies, they come into existence only by people borrowing it.
Yes.
And that's why our friend Dave Ramsey says live debt free. And that's good advice if you don't know what you're doing. Because I still remember putting deals together, interest rates were 12%. You have to get smarter. That's all it means.
It's the bubble went up, now it's coming down.
Right. The people that are in trouble, the people who jumped in late, they were at the top of the market. It's going to keep going up. That's a big lie, is that real estate always goes up. That's not true at all.
No, my gosh, it's delusion. It's that herd mentality, right? Everybody's jumping on. I'm going to miss out and next year's going to be better than last year. That's not how real estate works.
No. We also practice what we preach. We study also. We were just in Dallas, outside of Dallas, and we called the place called the Ranch. And the instructor said the reason people are poor is because they're farthest from the truth.
Yeah, that really hit me. The truth is what the truth is, period. And then you got people's realities, which is typically further from the truth. Not always, but the further from the truth you get, the poorer they are.
Yeah, so ever since the last couple of weeks, I see a poor person. I said, wonder what truth they're away from. There's something they're not seeing. And when I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad 25 years ago, I said, your house is not an asset. I nearly got crucified on the cross for that one.
Yeah, now everybody says it. Way ahead the game.
Do you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than hanging out with a toad. No, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I told you real estate was bad, it crashed. Oh, I told you, I don't want to buy real estate because you have to clean toilets and all this stuff. I hear all of that stuff. But that's what we learned last week in Dallas. The poorer you are is because you're furthest from
the truth.
And when they tell you get out of debt, that's really not the truth.
Boy, it was interesting because remember we were down there with Dr. Nicole and she said, it's the same with health. The further you are from the truth around health, the worse condition you're in. So the truth, it's a very interesting thing, and the reality or your perspective or even your opinion can be very far away from the truth.
Right. And some of the truths, reason people are poor is, well, I don't have any money. I can't afford it. That is not true. That's your opinion of your measly little self.
Yeah.
You have the power to do what you want to do.
I definitely don't think that we're going to be able to fix inflation for a while.
No.
So that's number one. You got to be really careful. We never really had to think about that too much, right? Inflation's been low and it slowly eroded our purchasing power, but now it's different. The gloves are off. So you can't just put your head in the sand because if we're going to be at 5-6% inflation, you're talking about 15, 20, 30% reduction of your purchasing power in just a few years. So you have to figure out how can I hedge myself against inflation? And that could be lots of things. What's going to grow with inflation? It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate. estate. It can be anything. Debt is certainly one of those things.
I thought there was going to be a big problem in real estate, but Kim and I had a property and we had up for sale for $9.75 million. The realtor says it'll never sell. It's sold immediately. And the reason is what happens with inflation, your cash becomes trash. But also the reason the realtor finally said, we misjudged this market. $10 million, it's a residential property. It's a pretty nice one in Hawaii. And the reason the person bought it is they'd rather have their cash sitting in a piece of real estate than in the bank.
You got it.
Yep.
And what does that tell you?
Yeah, the farther from the truth you are, the poorer you are. And the biggest lie ever told is it takes money to make money. That is not true. Don't worry about being the skipper of the Titanic. I've been the skipper a number of times, but it's always a good swimming experience. That's how you get smarter.
Right.
And I won't say this much, I've never lost money in real estate. I got in trouble. But when you scramble and you do what you have to do, you get smarter and smarter and smarter. And you go, man, I'm really glad I got into this trouble because I got smarter. The reason I say that, the average person is drinking the Kool-Aid. They just go to school, get a job, save money, get out of debt, and invest in a 401k or an IRA. You don't learn anything that way. You don't learn anything. So by jumping in as an idiot investor, you get smarter pretty quickly, right, Kenny?
I love Buffett's quote. He's like, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. And the tide is going out right now, my friends.
And there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yep.
You can't leverage gold the same way you can leverage real estate, can you?
You're brilliant, man. I use real estate as leverage to buy this. So what I do is I'll borrow, let's say, $20 million. The cash flow buys this.
You're using government printed money for your own assets.
Buy this.
And then the income from the assets you convert into gold.
Yes, this is God's money. This year's to be flushed down the toilet. And that's what they're doing with it. But, I made this much this month. Lose it.